I'm Hannah, a 36-year-old woman and wife. My life can feel pretty lonely since my husband, Aiden, is in the army. He's been deployed for a while, and military life isn't as glamorous as it seems. It's really about finding strength in the quiet moments when he's away. Aiden is a brave man with a quiet strength that I admire. One day, during one of his calls home, he asked me to do something unexpected. "Hannah, you should try to get along better with my mom," he said. I was surprised. "What do you mean?" I asked. "Grace hasn't been herself since Dad passed away. She feels lonely, just like you did when I was away on a business trip. Maybe you two could spend more time together," he explained. I was thinking to myself, this isn't going to be easy. Things had been tense between me and Aiden's mom, Grace, ever since a big incident at my wedding. Let me explain. It all started on my wedding day. Planning and organizing everything had stressed me out, and I was doing my best to stay calm. But just as I was trying to relax, Grace, my mother-in-law, seemed determined to make things harder. She had a way of pushing my buttons. She was really good at it. That day, she had her own plan, and it was clear she was trying to cause trouble. While I was preparing and hoping to enjoy my special day, Grace accidentally spilled red wine all over my white wedding dress. Yes, red wine on a white dress. It felt like a nightmare. She claimed it was a mistake, saying she was nervous about me getting married, but I could tell it wasn't an accident. The look in her eyes gave her away. She did it on purpose. From that moment on, things were never the same between us. Our relationship became full of tension, with passive-aggressive comments and sarcastic remarks. What used to be friendly conversations turned into a battleground. It was draining, and I didn't want to be part of it, but because I loved Aiden and knew how hurt he was by the situation, I agreed to try and fix things with Grace. I felt bad for him. He had been through so much with his army training and all the tough times he faced. I knew I needed to try for his sake. "It's important to you, so I'll give it a try," I said. "I want to support you." Aiden was relieved. "I know it won't be easy, but maybe you'll realize you have more in common than you think." "I'll try, but if she pulls anything like the wine incident again, we'll have a serious talk," I warned. "Okay, let's do this, for us, for Grace, and for you," he said. "Thanks, Hannah, it means a lot to me, and I'll make it up to you when I get back." After our talk, I nervously reached out to Grace. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I was determined to try for Aiden and for the family. As I expected, Grace's response was filled with passive-aggressive comments. "Aiden talked to me about how I treat you," she said. "I'll try to tolerate you more," she added, emphasizing the word try. It was clear that this wasn't going to be a smooth road. So, we started spending more time together. Cautiously at first, it was awkward. With so much tension in the air, it felt like you could cut it with a knife. But slowly, we began to connect, sharing family stories and experiences we both had in common. For a while, things were okay, but then, the real Grace started showing up again. It started small, those little jabs and comments that everyone else seemed to ignore, but I couldn't miss. A sarcastic remark here, a passive-aggressive comment there. It felt like something out of a bad high school drama. It was so frustrating. It was like she couldn't stop herself, and it was pushing me to my breaking point. Months went by, and my frustration kept building. I was tired of pretending to be the nice person trying to make it work. I couldn't stand the fake smiles and shallow conversations anymore. I couldn't ignore the problem any longer, even though I knew it would be uncomfortable. One day, I finally gathered the courage to confront Grace about her behavior. We were sitting at her house, sipping on tea that tasted more bitter than usual. My heart was pounding as I tried to find the right words. Finally, I blurted out, "Grace, I can't ignore the tension between us anymore. I thought we were making progress, but these constant jabs are starting to get to me." Grace gave me her usual innocent look, but I wasn't buying it this time. I took a deep breath, frustration turning into determination, and said, "You know exactly what I mean. Honestly, I'm done pretending. If we're going to make this work, we need to have a real conversation." That's when everything started to unravel. The conversation quickly turned into a full-blown argument, with each word making things worse. Our voices got louder, and the tension in the room felt like it was choking me. I was nervously waiting for my nosy neighbor to call the police, thinking a domestic dispute was happening. As the shouting continued, I realized just how deep the resentment between Grace and me really was. It wasn't just about the spilled wine on my wedding dress anymore, it was years of misunderstandings, anger, and unspoken feelings. In that moment, I knew there was no going back to how things were. Eventually, the argument died down, leaving the room heavy with the weight of our words. I left Grace's house feeling exhausted, but also oddly free. We had finally said everything we'd been holding in, and while it wasn't pretty, it was real. Afterward, I felt a mix of emotions, relief, sadness, and a strange sense of clarity. It became clear that some wounds were too deep to heal with just a few polite conversations. Later that day, I sat in my living room, still processing everything that had happened. The tension between me and Grace had worn me down, and I couldn't shake the feeling that the walls of our large house were closing in on me. It felt suffocating, weighed down by unresolved issues and old memories. As the days passed, I also couldn't ignore the loneliness that seemed to seep into every corner of our rented home. Aiden was still deployed, and the emptiness of the house was a constant reminder of how much I missed him. With the fallout from my argument with Grace, I felt even more isolated. I was tired of being too far from the people I loved and too close to those I didn't. The idea of moving started to grow on me. Downsizing to a smaller place felt like a fresh start, not just for financial reasons, though that would be a nice benefit. I wanted a space that was more manageable and, most importantly, free from the anxiety Grace caused. During one of our video calls, I brought it up to Aiden. To my surprise, he was open to the idea. I hadn't mentioned the fight with Grace yet, focusing instead on how the move could help us save money. But then, in his usual thoughtful way, Aiden asked the question I had been avoiding. "Hey babe, part of me thinks this might be about someone else. Did you and my mom have another clash? Is she part of the reason you want to move?" he asked. I sighed, feeling a mix of frustration and relief that he had brought it up. "Yeah, it's partly about her, Aiden. I really tried, but she's just so confrontational. Every conversation with her feels like a battle, and I can't take it anymore," I confessed. Aiden nodded sympathetically. "I understand, Hannah, you've tried, but if it's stressing you out this much, maybe it's time to put yourself first. I don't understand why my mom feels this way about you, but I'll support you. If moving helps, then I'm all for it," he said. His support was exactly what I needed. It wasn't about running away from the problem but about finding a solution that would give us both peace. Aiden reassured me that it was okay to prioritize my well-being and create an environment where I could thrive without constant stress. As we continued talking, I felt more determined. Moving wouldn't fix everything, but it was a step toward reclaiming my peace. With Aiden's support, even from miles away, I felt ready to take control and make decisions for a better future. 3 months later, I was comfortably settled in my new, stylish apartment. It had been a total game changer. The weight of the old place, filled with negativity, was finally gone. My 26th birthday was coming up, and I was excited. This would be my first birthday celebration in the new apartment, and I wanted it to be special. Normally, I'd leave my home the night before to let my friends and family decorate as a surprise, but this year, I had something different in mind. Living in such a small apartment meant I couldn't throw a big party. Instead, my friends had already arrived, and we were kicking off the festivities before our early flight the next day. It was a pre-trip hangout, everyone crashing at my place before heading out for the adventure. The living room was filled with laughter and excited chatter as we prepared for our trip. But, as life often does, it decided to throw a curveball. Amid the excitement, my phone buzzed with a message from Grace. I was curious, so I checked it, and it read, "Call me now. Something important to talk about, The message was short and urgent, making me wonder what on earth was going on. I quietly stepped away from the group and went to my bedroom to call Grace, my heart racing with a mix of curiosity and concern. "Hello, Grace. What's going on?" I asked. "I've had enough of your behavior, Hannah. What the hell is wrong with you?" Her voice was sharp and angry. "Excuse me?" I responded, stunned. "You heard me. Why do you insist on trying to make my son hate me?" she demanded. "Oh, I see. You're upset because I told Aiden the truth," I said, feeling frustrated by her accusation. "What truth?" she asked, clearly confused. "You're being ridiculous, Grace. I don't have time for this. I'm done with your bitterness. I don't care that you're unhappy. Just leave me alone and let me enjoy my birthday," I snapped, not willing to tolerate her negativity anymore. Then came her shocking reply. "Speaking of that, I wanted to let you know you won't be enjoying your birthday this year. You should thank me for the heads up." Confused and a little alarmed, I asked, "What the hell are you talking about?" "Well, since you didn't invite me this year, I felt a bit resentful. So, I decided to contribute in my own way to make your birthday special. I couldn't wait any longer. I broke into your house and destroyed everything, all the decorations, the furniture, everything is shattered. Honestly, I did you a favor. Your friends did a terrible job decorating. It looked like someone else was living there," she said, almost smugly. I was speechless, shocked by her outrageous actions. I took a deep breath, processing what she had just said. As the silence stretched on, I imagined her grinning on the other end of the line. Finally, she broke the silence. "Oh, looks like I gave you a great surprise. Happy birthday, Hannah. Hope you enjoy it," she said with a twisted satisfaction. I couldn't help it. I burst into laughter, which seemed to infuriate Grace. "Why are you laughing? What's so funny? You should be in tears right now," she demanded, clearly baffled. I regained my composure and replied, "Oh, Grace, you're quite the fool." I couldn't help but keep giggling. "Excuse me?" Grace said, clearly confused. "You think you're so clever, don't you?" I replied, still laughing. "Well, I'll admit, you did manage to surprise me. I had no idea you could be this despicable, but I'll say this, you've made a colossal mistake." "Oh yeah? What mistake is that?" she demanded. "That wasn't my house," I said, still with a smirk on my face. "Have you lost your mind or something?" she asked, shocked. "No, Grace. But you will once you realize that you just broke into someone else's house and vandalized it," I said calmly. That was the moment it hit her. I told Grace I'd moved 3 months ago. She had no idea. The house she thought she'd wrecked was now someone else's, a man named Sheriff Adam. He'd just moved to the area with his family and was getting his house ready. I'd met him a few times, he seemed like one of those genuinely good guys. As I explained, I could hear Grace's panic building. She was starting to realize the gravity of what she'd just done. She'd messed with the wrong house, the wrong person. Vandalizing a random home was one thing, but a sheriff's house? That was a whole different level of stupidity. I could hear the fear creeping into her voice as she trembled. "Oh my God, Hannah, what have I done?" she gasped. I couldn't help but let out a quiet chuckle, but it wasn't joyful. It was more of a mix of disbelief and satisfaction. "Well, Grace," I said, "you decided to mess with the sheriff's house. You're on your own now." She started crying and panicking, begging me to fix it. She didn't even apologize for breaking into the wrong house. Instead, she wanted me to call the sheriff and tell him it was all a misunderstanding. But honestly, that was just too much. She had to face the consequences of her actions. I had no intention of helping her out. I had to stifle a laugh as she sobbed over the phone, telling me her life was ruined. I didn't feel an ounce of sympathy. For years, she'd played her little games, and now she was finally reaping what she'd sown. To me, it felt like justice. "Please, please help me," she begged, her voice desperate. I shook my head, even though she couldn't see it. "Sorry, Grace. You got yourself into this mess, and I suggest you figure your way out. I won't be a part of it. But hey, I'll say this, you gave me the best birthday present." I ended the call, feeling a strange sense of relief. I was done with Grace and her endless drama. It was time to move forward and live my life without the constant burden of her negativity. As I looked around my cozy new apartment, I knew I'd made the right choice by leaving the old place behind. The next day, I was ready for my vacation with my friends. We were going to have fun and make memories, and I was determined to leave Grace's problems in the past. For the rest of the trip, I ignored all of her calls. I'd made up my mind, I was done with her toxic behavior for good. During a break, I was able to call my husband, Aiden, and told him everything that had happened with Grace. He was understandably upset with his mom for what she had done. It seemed like she had finally gone too far, and he was glad to see her facing the consequences of her actions. While my friends and I were having fun on vacation, I kept getting updates from people back home. They told me what was happening with Grace. After all her crazy behavior, she ended up in jail. The best part was that no one was there to help her out. It felt like she was finally getting what she deserved. I couldn't help but feel a little satisfied hearing about Grace's situation. For so long, she acted like she could do anything without facing any consequences. But now, she was all alone, dealing with everything by herself because she had pushed everyone away. While I was enjoying the sun with my friends, Grace was stuck in a jail cell with no one to turn to. It felt like a huge weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I was free from her negativity and manipulation, and it felt so good. When my vacation ended, I returned home feeling refreshed and ready to move on. The chapter with Grace was over, and I was excited to start a new, positive chapter in my life. It was empowering to know I had taken control of my happiness and let go of all the negativity she had brought into my life. Life moved on, and I focused on building better relationships with people who cared about me. Aiden and I grew even closer, and we were more committed than ever to building a happy life together. As for Grace, she had finally faced the consequences of her actions. It was a hard lesson for her, and one that would stay with her for a long time.